all of you know that I have a bit of a soft spot for the old religios, right? The old religios type situation. There's a situation in America recently where there is a guy called Russell, what's his name? Russell Moore, I think. Russell Moore. Russell Moore used to be this really big dude and I don't mean he lost weight, high profile person in that whole kind of evangelical world. Now I'm sorry, I don't want to
that headline.
I don't want to mansplain to you all, but the evangelical right in America is people who identify with the Christian church, but they love war, yet they hate abortion. They love the death penalty, yet they don't want to give young kids under 5 food stamps to help them survive. This is this world, this very strange world, and they vote for Republicans. Probably this time around they vote for Trump. As long as you're saying you're pro-life and anti-abortion, they'll vote for you, even if you've probably paid for numerous ones of them yourself and slept with a porn star while your wife was pregnant and you like to grab people by the pussy. But what did you say about abortion? You've got my vote. No problems at all. Well, to his credit, this guy here, who was part of that world, former evangelical leader, when Trump came out, he was like, hang on, guys, this doesn't really fit with the world that we've been talking about and trying to sell to people. So he kind of pulled away from that movement. And as he pulled away from that movement, he lost all sort of work and jobs and he lost his responsibility. And when it came to issues around Trump and what happens, he then wrote a book, right? And he talks about the divisive US politics. This is what he says. He says he thinks that the large part of the issue about how divisive US politics is, which is now spilling over into the church. I actually wonder if it's the other way around. It was divisive in the church and it's spilling into politics. Yeah. But either way, he pointed out how to do have to do with a lot of issues packaged in terms of existential threat, leading to the belief among everybody, not just evangelical Christians, that, quote, desperate times will call for desperate measures. Now, what that means is desperate times call for desperate measures. I don't mean what does it mean. I'm not going to explain that to you, but it means we will put up with Trump because desperate times call for desperate measures, even though he doesn't maybe tick our box completely. It makes sense that then evangelical Christians would embrace Trump, what I just said, who portrayed himself as the answer to many of those supposed existential threats. Trump both campaigned and governed on a largely evangelical Christian platform. He moved the US embassy to Israel, from Israel to Jerusalem. He cracked down on immigration in majority Muslim countries, and he appointed multiple conservative judges, including to the Supreme Court, which has swung sharply to the right. Now, Russell Moore has written a book, and I can't see what the name of the book is. I'll find it for you. But he was talking to NPR last week, and he talked to NPR, and one of the issues he says he's identifying in the evangelical church at the moment is that they basically think Jesus is a bit of a hippie. He's too peaceful, he's too kind, and they don't like it. Remember, these are the people who say that Jesus figure is the central of my beliefs. He's the central figure in my beliefs. Christian means Christ-like. It means to emulate yourself after this figure, right? To mimic what this figure was all about, supposedly. And this is what he said on NPR about what's happening when he was talking about the crisis in Christianity.
Today in America.
Well, it was the result of having multiple pastors tell me essentially the same story about quoting the Sermon on the Mount parenthetically in their preaching.
Now, the Sermon on the Mount is probably one of the most famous. Most people will know it. You know, blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor. It's blessed all the people who are doing it fucking hard, right? They will inherit the earth. That's what it talks about. Blessed are all these underlings, right? All these people who haven't got it quite as good as you. Well, they're very blessed, and one of the reasons they're blessed is because of the troubles they're going through. That's the theme of that sermon. So basically, look after the widows and orphans.
Multiple pastors tell me essentially the same story about quoting the Sermon on the Mount parenthetically in their preaching. Turn the other cheek. To have someone come up after and to say, where did you get those liberal talking points? And what was alarming to me is that in most of these scenarios, when the pastor would say, I'm literally quoting Jesus Christ, the response would not be, I apologize. The response would be, yes, but that doesn't work anymore. That's weak. And when we get to the point where the teachings of Jesus himself are seen as subversive to us, then we're in a crisis.
I mean, how do you even begin to fix that problem, though, when the central message of the gospel is something that a lot of people in the church do not seem to want to fully embrace?
I don't think we fix it by fighting a war for the soul of evangelicalism. I really don't think we can fix it at the movement level. And that's one of the reasons why when I'm talking to Christians who are concerned about this, my counsel is always small and local. I think we have to do something different and show a different way. And I see in history every time that something renewing and reviving has happened, it's happened that way. It's happened at a small level with people simply refusing to go with the stream of the church culture at the time. And I think that's where we need to be now.
So there you go. I think you have no idea, Cherry, from someone like me who's been in that world, how humongous that is. I mean, I know that I talk about this probably a bit too much. It's not the audience we're looking for, but I've said this many times before. And Russell Moore just said when the teachings of Jesus, and I don't care what you believe, but it's pretty hard to struggle that those actual teachings that he puts out there, look after the widows and orphans, turn the other cheek, if someone needs the shirt off your back, give them more, that kind of stuff, are good teachings. I think he's a lefty lunatic like some of us. And his message at the time to the established church was subversive. And what is happening now is people who are on the right in America are finding his message today subversive. What that means is they are as bad and as horrific as the church was back in the days those stories were written, which means they are the enemy of the religion, even though they claim to adhere to and own that sort of religion. And I just find it utterly fascinating, Chewy. No one else probably does, but I do.
No, I find it interesting as well. And look, I wasn't raised with a religion. I've been very critical of religion as well. So I'm going to couch it in terms that I get, right? I have the same sort of issue. Like, I'm a big Star Wars fan, obviously, with my name and a lot of the shit behind me here. It's like when people hero worship the Empire and you're going, you're cheering for the baddies. Don't do that. But yeah, even my layman's knowledge of Christianity, right? And to see these guys are like, are you kidding? This guy would hate everything that you are, that you're doing in his name. Like, it's just bizarre to me. Like, I was going to say it's little things. It's not really a little thing, right? When you had Christian Americans going on about how incompatible Islam is, and they worship a different God, and it's like, no, same God, same part of the world it came from. Jesus is prophet in Islam, same God, and they don't know. And this is the thing, when people slide into fascism, they do it through populism and they do it through ignorance. And I think one of the biggest problem that, well, America has a lot of problems, but if they slide into a civil war, it's going to be along religious lines and it's going to be across racial lines. And that is going to be, well, biblical, not in a good way. It's going, like, when you look at civil wars and stuff like that have broken down over religious lines, like some of the worst shit imaginable, literal hell on earth opens up. And yeah, we're talking about a heavily armed country with unresolved racial issues dividing over religious lines, and they got nukes. So it's all good news, Hopefully climate change gets us first. Point.
Do you think that the first nukes America uses in battle might be, or not the first, because Hiroshima, but of the modern era, might be America on America, might be Texas bombing California. that might be the first time it gets used in that kind of conflict, missiles rather than bombs. Look, I just think
all I'd be saying is if I lived in California, I'd be pretty worried. I think California is the first on the hit list.
If people who watch the show, one thing is we do our best to be consistent. I'm not arrogant enough to say we always get it right, but we do our best to be consistent. And the thing I love about the conversation around the sort of American Christian right is they're just so inconsistent. Like I've already pointed out, they're all pro-life, but they support the death penalty. Hang on. What? That's the opposite, or they support war or the troops or that kind of stuff. I'm not saying you shouldn't support the people who are the troops, but they support the war that the troops are in. It's just, they all have guns. And this is the problem, Chewy. If there's a civil war in America, who owns all the guns? It's not the liberals and it's not the people of color, the minorities. It's the evangelicals who somehow think Jesus would have had an AK because that's the kind of gun that Jesus would have had. It's just that
I-
I just find it hilarious because I've said for such a long time, and you, if you've watched us for a while, you'll know I've probably said it here, that Jesus was a lefty. All his messages
He was
are
also a
left.
tradie.
Yep.
He'd love a
Carpenter.
Cody's and
Yep.
a blue V
and half a
and a
fag.
pie. Yeah.
By fag, I obviously mean cigarette people from America, because that's the terminology we use for it.